Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brittany of BrittanyJJones.com. In today's video, I will be demonstrating how to sew a shawl collar. Let's get started. To sew a shawl collar, I'll be using pattern pieces from Simplicity 3109. To begin, I'll be starting with the front pattern piece number 1. There's a dot up here at this corner that we should have transferred. We're going to reinforce this dot. And so to reinforce, we'll start about 1 inch above the dot and we will just stitch to the dot. Once we get to it, we can pivot and then stitch across this way for about 1 inch as well. That way we'll be able to clip to it and spread. Let's go ahead and do reinforcing now at the dot. Now that you have it reinforced, yours should look like this. And now we can just clip right up to the small dot. Grab your shears. Clip to the dot, do not clip through the dot. Now that you have reinforced the small dot here and you have clipped to it, now you can go ahead and put your fronts right sides together. So with the right sides facing your fabric, you may be able to tell your right from wrong side. I just have my markings transferred on the wrong side. I'll put an X here just to make things easier for the video. But make sure that you have your fabric right sides facing now. You do have a notch. You can match up your notch up here along the top. And now we are going to go ahead and pin the center back together. This up here is the center back seam. Go ahead and grab some pins and pin that in place. And now we can stitch using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Let's go ahead and do that now. Now that you have it sewn, go ahead and press that seam open flat. We could put this to the side for just a moment and go ahead and grab the back pattern piece. The first thing that you want to do is go ahead and do stay stitching along the neckline. Stay stitching is done at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And you want to make sure that you do the stay stitching in the direction of the arrows that are on your pattern. So I started at the shoulder and then came to the center. I did that for both sides. So make sure again that you do your stay stitching at a 1/2 inch seam allowance in the direction of the arrows on your pattern. Once you have that done, let's go ahead and pin the front to back along the shoulders, matching the notches and the dots. So with right sides facing, let's go ahead and grab the front. So on the front over here where we slashed that, this is the shoulder seam. You should have transferred a notch. We're gonna match that up, right sides facing and pin in place. You want to match up the dot, so you should have transferred the dot along the back. It's going to match up with that dot right there that we reinforced along the front. Pin that in place. Same thing for the other side. And so the middle right here, this is our neck edge. We're going to match this up and pin this in place. You will need to put some clips along the back neck edge just to match everything up. I like to sew my shoulder seams first, so those are secure. And then I come back, clip the back edge, and then I sew the neck edge together. You can go ahead and pin your neckline now. Again, you will need to clip the back neckline here up to the stay stitching and then stitch everything in place. But me personally, I find it easier if I go ahead and stitch the shoulder seams and then I can come back and work on the neckline. That's what I'm gonna do, but again, you can go ahead and pin it now and stitch it all in one step. Now that I have my shoulders sewn, I'm gonna go ahead and place some clips along the back neck edge up to that stay stitching line. And now I'm gonna start pinning this in place. Now that you have it pinned, let's go ahead and stitch the neck edge. Again, if you need to place more clips, you can go ahead and do that. But let's go ahead and stitch it now using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once you have it sewn, your neckline should look similar to this. So you want to make sure that you don't have any folds or any pulls or ripples here. You want a nice clean seam, and then right here at the point you want it to be a nice kind of sharp point right there. So once you have yours sewn, you want to go ahead and press your shoulder seams open flat like so, and then press your neckline seam toward the front. Once you have that done, now you can go ahead and pin your side seams together, right sides facing, and then you can stitch that in a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this side here. Now we can stitch using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once you have your side seams sewn, you can see here I've sewn my side seams and I pressed my seams open flat. Next, let's go ahead and grab the facing. For the facing, you want to fuse it with interfacing like I've done here. You can just follow the manufacturer's instructions on how to fuse your interfacing to your fabric. And then you definitely want to go ahead and transfer your markings, especially that small dot up here at the corner. The same thing that we did to the front, we're going to do to the facing by doing that reinforced right there at the small dot. So as you can see here, I started stitching about an inch above it. Once I got to the dot, I pivoted across. And then I also went ahead and placed a clip right up to the dot, not clipping past the dot, just clipping to it. And so I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to grab my shears and I'm just going to clip right to the dot, being careful not to clip through the dot in the stitching. Once you have that done, after you have fused it, transfer your markings, did your reinforce, and then clip, again, the same way that we did to the front. Now we can go ahead and place these right sides facing and then stitch this center back seam together. So go ahead and grab your pins, match up those notches, and pin it in place. Once you have it pinned, we can go ahead and stitch using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Next, along this neck edge as well as the inner edge of the facing, you want to go ahead and press under 5/8 of an inch, the seam allowance here. I've already pressed under my seam allowance along the inner edge of the facing as well as the neck edge here. Once you have it pressed, then you can trim it down to 3/8 of an inch. I've already trimmed down the long edges, so now I'm just going to trim down the neck edge. Again, after you have pressed up 5/8 of an inch, you just want to trim it down to 3/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to trim it down here, trimming off about a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And so now that we have it trimmed down, again, first make sure that you press up 5/8 of an inch along the inner edge of the facing and then trim it down to 3/8 of an inch. Next, let's go ahead and grab the front and the back and we can pin these edges here together. Now with right sides facing, let's go ahead and match up our seams, our centers, as well as notches, and just start to pin everything in place right sides facing. Now that you have it pinned, let's go ahead and stitch using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that you have it sewn, you can go ahead and trim down your seam allowance. I've trimmed down mine. And so now we can turn the facing to the inside. I'm gonna go ahead and press mine going toward the inside. Let's go ahead and give that a press. Again, turning the facing to the inside of the garment. Let's press that now. Okay, now that you have given everything a press and you have turned the facing toward the inside, the next thing that you want to do is grab a needle and thread, and you want to slip stitch this pressed edge to the next seam. So right here, go ahead and take that pressed edge of the facing, and then you can slip stitch it right here to the next seam. And then also you can tack down the shoulder seam. While you are doing your slip stitch, if you like, you can tuck in that raw edge there where we clipped, just so you have a nice clean area here, and just continue your slip stitch over here with the shoulder. Go ahead and do your slip stitching. Once you have your slip stitching complete, you have just installed a shawl collar and you can continue with the construction of your garment. Well, that is all for the video, and I really do hope that it was helpful. If you would like to see more how to sew videos, there's a playlist down in the description box where you can click and watch all of the videos there. Until next time, blessings everyone. Bye.